Alright everyone, this is Stammeron and welcome back to another video on the channel that's all about stammering, stuttering and everything in between. And for this video I have another interview, and this time I'm going to be talking to Daniele Rossi, who is the creator of Stuttering is Cool. And Stuttering is Cool is a podcast and also like a comics series like featuring like a stuttering fox called Franky Banky. I'm gonna let him kind of tell you more. However, before we get into the interview, just a reminder to please leave a like, please leave a comment if you have any questions at all. Or if there's anyone else you would like to see me talk to. And also don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want to see more like this in the future. Okay, let's get into it.
Hello, and thank you very much for joining me today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yay! And would you like to introduce yourself to the people at home?
I never know how to introduce myself. My name is Daniele Rossi, but you can call me Danny because it is quite a hard name even for fluent speakers to say outside of Italy. I live in Toronto in Canada, and I produce a podcast called Stuttering is Cool, and also comics about stuttering featuring a cartoon fox. He's right over there. Franky Banky and a tiger. His name is Ti-Ger, spelled Ti-Ger because he's a block, or it's written as a block. And Ti-Ger is a metaphor of Franky Banky's stuttering.
Nice.
I hope so.
What inspired you to start working with these two characters then, and also why a fox and a tiger specifically?
Well, I've always been drawing comics since I was a kid. I always had that dream, to have my own syndicated comic strip in the newspaper. I want to be the next Charles M. Schultz, the next Bill Watterson.
Of course.
Although my artistic skills nowhere match near that of Watterson. So it was inevitable. It was inevitable that I'd be drawing comics. And same thing for the podcast. I know you haven't asked about the podcast, but with the podcast, I always enjoyed playing with the tape recorder when I was a kid growing up. And so again, same kind of idea, I would love to have my own radio show someday, this and this. So it was inevitable when podcasting came that I would create a podcast. So back to your original question, why a fox and why a tiger? Fox, you know what? There's no rhyme or reason towards reason why I chose a fox, because what happened was, long story short, in the 90s sometime. So I have a friend in Italy who back in the 90s, so he was creating a website, an online shopping site with his friends, and they needed a cartoon logo and they needed a fox logo. And so, but I had the hardest time drawing a fox. I couldn't draw a fox if my life depended on it. The shopping site did not pan out, it did not launch. But for maybe a year or two, I kept going back every so often. I gotta draw a fox. I want to be able to draw a fox. And then one night, must have been 2 a.m, something like that. And I'm drawing, and I thought, okay, let's try something abstract. It has to be more cartoony. And then up came this fox. And then years later, when I launched the podcast and it was time for a comic, I thought, hey, this character would go well, would fit well. Now, he was in color before. He has orange or rusty fur. And then just a fun fact side note, he became black and white because it's easier to draw in one color.
Fair.
And then when I tried to switch back, friends were saying, but I'm used to seeing him as a black and white character. So I guess I'll keep him as a black and white character. The tiger, though, different story, very, very related to stuttering. So, again, long story short, back in, we'll say maybe 2009, a friend of mine who also stuttered, he went to the zoo one day and there was, I guess, a feature, an activity, like for $50, something like that, you could play with the baby tigers. The baby tigers, like they're safe enough that like they're not going to eat you up because they're babies. So
Yeah.
you can play with the baby tigers. And he noticed as he was playing with the baby tigers, every time he would turn his back on one of the tigers, they would try and pounce on him. They would jump and they would pounce. And every time he would face the tiger, they would, sit back down.
Yeah.
So he realized, this is an analogy for stuttering. For trying to be covert all the time, the tiger's going to pounce on you, right? Like things aren't going to work well. You're going to switch words. Sometimes it might backfire. I drew a comic about that one. So Franky Banky's used a different name and he used the wrong name. So I love that idea of the tiger analogy. And at the time I was on Twitter, there was a very thriving community, stuttering community on Twitter. So I'm like, I gotta draw a tiger comic, a tiger cartoon and all that. I crowdsourced the name. That's how the name, the spelling came up.
Yeah.
And then came the idea, okay, how do I marry the two ideas together into like a good comic strip story? So I think I'm there.
I do love, and like the idea of you'd spent so long trying to learn how to draw a fox. You were like, now I need to use the fox for something.
Now I need to use it.
It needs to be worth it. It's when you get those kind of bee in your bonnets almost of like, you need to master this.
Exactly.
But no, I love these two characters, and I've not got it here. Like it's at my parents' house in Edinburgh, but I've got your book, which is that kind of stuttering is cool. A guide to talk.
A guide to stuttering. Product placement. A guide to stuttering in a fast-talking world.
There we go. Yeah, and that's full of like amazing like kind of little comics featuring these two characters. And one of the ones that's always stuck with me is, I think it's one of the first in the book and one of the last in the book. And it's Franky Banky introducing himself.
Yeah.
And then the first one, there's so much effort and so much frustration and anger and all of that.
Yeah.
And then like by the end, like he's introducing himself again, and he still stutters, but he's perfectly comfortable with it. He maintains eye contact and he's happy. Yeah. And I thought that was just a great like kind of ending and close thing. So yes, I would thoroughly recommend that book for anyone who wants to go out and buy it. And I'm sure we can link it in the description. But yeah, and look, where did you start putting out these cartoons? Was it?
Oh, that's a good question.
Was it on a website straight away, or did you start on any social media platform?
It was on my website, so over at stutterschool.com, way back when. That I started. It was my podcast that I started. The comics Franky Banky came after. So about 2007 was November 2007 when I launched. So maybe 2010 or maybe even earlier, I started posting in pencil comics, Franky Banky comics, and in fact, I believe the very first comic I posted was the one where Franky Banky is saying his name, but that was in color. And I posted, and then maybe a few days after maybe I got an email from someone in India saying, I love that comic. I printed it out. It's hanging in my cubicle. And I thought, whoa, my mind is blown. Somebody on the other side of the planet from me has it posted there, and I needed no production company or newspapers, nothing. I did it myself, posted, and wow, and all that stuff. So I would say around that time, but it wasn't until 2013 when I was when I was writing my book that Franky Banky started or rather I started drawing more Franky Banky comics. And yeah, so it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, like, because I remember like kind of seeing like kind of your comics around like before I met you. We met in 2016.
At the
Atlanta
Georgia,
conference. And yeah, I remember seeing stuff around. And also like, I'd had a couple of friends like mention either your podcast like, or the comics to me, like before I met you as well. Like, so like you've got a bit of traction on social media, which is really cool.
I'm a celeb.
I know. Like, have any like of your comics ever turned up, or have they ever referenced them like somewhere that you completely didn't expect?
You know what, the fact that anybody would mention my comics is unexpected. I've had I guess in terms of, well, you know, it showed up in a book, a French language book. Wow. by a speech language pathologist who wrote in Quebec, who wrote a book. And she asked me if it's okay if she can include one of my comics in her book, in her chapter about using humor in the therapy room. Oh, I guess unexpected would be in the therapy room. I get a lot of feedback from SLPs saying I use this in the therapy room sections of my book, and that just blows my mind. When I'm just sitting going, wouldn't it be funny if I drew a comic about Franky Banky, switching his name, and then all these things happen. He gets on the news. People think he's, the wrong person who, robbed a bank and destroyed people's lives, and he's trying to run away. And it's, we used it in a, therapy session, and it made some breakthroughs. I'm like, wow. Or another time, I got a message from a parent in the States where she showed a video that her daughter was making in elementary school, and she was nervous about starting in front of the camera, shooting a video, but she wouldn't do it unless she had a Franky Banky sticker, and she was wearing it. And the mother says, do you know she's wearing the sticker? Because I'd sent a sticker. I'm like, oh my God, right? You never know. And that's one of the things that I've learned in all this, putting yourself out there, or rather putting your creativity to use, so your passions to use, that you never know what comes out of that. You never know who you're going to whose lives you're going to touch, and what else that it ignites, like that domino effect. Somebody years ago said, let's create a stuttering association in the States. For 30 years later, I would find out about, hey, I got to check this out. And then that's going to spawn, I mentioned it on my podcast, someone heard it. They said, oh, let's go see, hey, I'm going to start a stuttering association in my place. And then, I think I'll do a talent show at that stuttering conference. And then I'll post a video on YouTube. And then that person, it's amazing how all this, so it's going to happen to you, or it probably already is, I'm pretty sure, because you've had Claire. I know you've had Claire on, Claire Norman, and on your videos. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you've had feedback. And
I always say, so much of people's involvement in certain associations, a lot of us find it by pure chance, pure luck, and then it leads into other stuff. It's like a story that I've told a few times on my channel. And I got involved with STAMA, or the British Stammering Association, as it was at the time. And because one of my friend's mums spotted a leaflet in her workplace, which basically said do you stammer, and do you like drama?
Oh.
And she thought, Lynn stammers and likes dramas, I'll pick it up and give it to her. And it turned out to be a bunch of improv workshops which the BSA were running in Glasgow. But it's a total fluke. It's complete chance, and I have no idea when I would have found out about the BSA, if not for that, which is crazy.
Yeah, same thing with me. It was total fluke. Just one day I thought to myself, are there any podcasts about stuttering? Every so often I would do that, and I would take a look. Nope, there's not. Oh, there is one. And then it didn't last. Okay, then later on, like, oh, there is one. And then I'm hearing them talk about things like National Stuttering Association, stuttering support groups, hanging out with your friends who also stutter, like the concept friends who stutter. Wait, what? Whoa, I need this, right? And then that's how things, right? And then
it's amazing. I mean, how much it's, as far as like, because I got involved with the BSA when I was 15.
Wow.
And like, I just imagine how different my life would have been if I hadn't found it until, I'm currently like kind of 29. If I hadn't found it until my mid-20s, my life would have been completely different. So it's really odd to think of. And I think like when it comes into our lives is really important. Sorry, that was a total tangent, but
No, but it's,
I find it really
it's a great,
though.
Yeah, it's a great tangent, and I'll close the tangent now soon. But I want to say, every time I go to a stuttering conference and I see the kids, or even the 15-year-olds, I go, man, if I had known back then what I know now, you know, like, wow, life would have been different, you know. So I'm really glad that we have these stuttering conferences, you know, and groups like Stanley, for example, right, that is making, you know, they're like making all of our content, you know, and we have this technology that helps us propagate our content, so people on the other side of the planet, right, can have access to where maybe their area doesn't even have a word for stuttering, or, you know, it might be that rare, or, you know,
or if they're still like kind of not getting any support there, but like they know that it's accepted and like people are like kind of living with it elsewhere, and it might help them to feel better about it for themselves, which I think is really important. Yeah.
Okay, and that is it, like, for this part of my conversation with Daniele Rossi. And there will be another part coming soon, as you've probably realised. At this point, I like to talk, so these interviews do tend to be a bit longer. So I've split it up into different parts for you. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, to find out when the next part is coming out. Please leave a like if you enjoyed it. If you have any questions for either me or for Danny, then please leave them down in the comments. And I will see you in the next one.